There's the thumbnail, maybe. I'm not sure how I'm gonna promote this, but here we go. So I read this book. And let me tell you about it. All right. So the first section is the introduction. And he basically tells you how to navigate this book. This book, you can actually take little tidbits here and there, but I felt that it was best if you just consume it all at once. I know a lot of people can't really do that. Because I actually had the physical book and the Audible, I was able to get through it all. Needless to say, I do have some opinions. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is basically about play. And he basically was like, there are 3 elements to play. The first one is finding your play personality. He breaks it down into 8 different play personalities. There's collector, competitor, explorer, creator, storyteller, joker, director, and athlete. I find myself leaning towards creator. And he basically talks about the first section being, you gotta tap into your play personality. Have a little fun. Don't be so serious. That is rule number 1. The second one is try to find the fun in everything. And you're like, that kind of sounds like rule number 1. No, it's not, because rule number 1 is letting yourself not be serious. Rule number 2 is trying to make your everyday work feel like a game, right? Makes sense? Following with me? Cool. Okay, and rule number 3, lower the stakes. If a failure seems like such a big deal to you, you're doing it wrong. I understand that failure for some people, it's like a big thing and it's like overwhelming and it's like a big old giant boulder that you just, if it happens, it's gonna like crush you. Am I speaking from personal experience? Yes, I am. But here I am, and here I am staring at the boulder. Like I was saying, he talks about lowering the stakes and allowing yourself to have fun. You know, something that you naturally, as a child, hopefully, would allow yourself to do. You allowed yourself to have fun. And as an adult, I feel like we all lose that sense of fun along the way because we become an adult, and being an adult is so serious and somewhat soul-crushing. But rule number 1, have fun. Okay, so chapter 2, stay with me now, is the second energizer, right? And that's power. And I know that sounds like a scary word, and he even said that in the book, but it's not, all right? Power is basically empowering yourself. And he breaks it down into basically 3 little tidbits, right? The first one starting with your confidence, okay? And he's like, I know you think your confidence is fixed. Everyone kind of just starts out with like X amount of confidence, but that is something that you can develop, something you can help yourself in, okay? It's believing in yourself. Believe in yourself that you can change as a person in terms of confidence. Like I said, the first chapter was play, right? You're allowing yourself to play. All right, now the second chapter, it's about believing in yourself, that confidence. Just keep that momentum going. Little by little, even if you have to fake it, you can start to build confidence. Now the second section is leveling up your skills. Now what does that mean? It basically means, even though I'm not an expert at XYZ, how can I teach this to people if I was to train them, right? So say for example, you're a cashier and you don't really know everything because you're not the manager, but here comes a new hire and the manager's not really there to train them for whatever reason. And it's kind of like not really up to you, but it's your choice to whether or not you will help this person. So if you're new to this task, how would you help this person? And in terms of doing that, it helps you basically retrain and hone your skills. Pretending that you're about to train this new person, this baby person who doesn't know anything about the cash register. How are you going to train them? How would you train them? And in turn, you're basically finding out what you've learned and what you need to learn. You know, what are the holes in that knowledge? So you're not on autopilot. At least that's what I took from this. The last little section in chapter 2 is about ownership. They found out with research that if you take ownership of something, you are more motivated to actually do the thing that you own. Why? Because it's on your shoulders. But not only that, you can control the outcome somewhat, as best as possible, right? It's not up to leadership. It's not up to your parent. It's up to you whether or not XYZ comes out great or just meh. And you know, 9 times out of 10, if you own something, you don't want it to just be meh. You want it to be amazing or as best as possible. On to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about people. Oh my God, I love this chapter. This chapter, not only is it my favorite number, it's my favorite topic, people, okay? People energize people. He talks about energy vampires and he talks about basically human batteries. And that sounds weird, I know, but let me get to it. Human vampire is basically someone who literally just drains the energy out of you just by having a conversation with them. You just feel physically and mentally tired because for whatever reason, your energy is just shot after your interaction with them. That being said, they are also like human batteries. They charge you up. They are your people. Usually they are coined your tribe, your vibe. And if you find your people, again, research-based, research-backed, you will be so much more motivated to go that extra mile. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to find that extra mile. What gives you that energy, that spark, that motivation to just start and then keep going, keep that momentum going. And Ali basically talks about how if you find not only the right people, but the right scene, the right environment. He talks about a musician, how he wasn't a musician, he was originally an art teacher. And his friend took him to one of his gigs who was a musician, and after that he was hooked. He was like, oh, the vibe was amazing. He kept talking to his friends about it, and before you know it, he started to become a musician. And I'm talking about Andy McKay. And hopefully you know about him because he's kind of a world famous musician. And he said if it wasn't for that interaction with his friend that one time, he would still be an art teacher to this day. So literally finding your vibe and finding your people can be life-changing. If not, world-changing too, you know? The first little section in chapter 3 is basically life is more fun with people around. Which is true. Life is more fun when you have people around you that are like you or share the same values as you. Then he starts talking about being a team player, right? So not only are you getting energy from them, but be a team player, give that energy right back. He starts to talk about building connections as well. So building connections with like-minded people or with people that you vibe with and you're just trying to almost be like them. You want to be in that environment. You want to cultivate those relationships with those types of people. Anyways, the last thing, and I found this super refreshing that Ali put this, and he talks about over-communication and how to keep those relationships sacred. And it's how to over-communicate with other human beings. As an introvert, people have just thought the wrong thing And it's not one thing, it's another thing, but because I'm an introvert and I don't really talk that much, it was perceived as another thing. And Ollie was like, over communication is key. Okay, over communication is key. Tell them what you were thinking, and then tell them again, just in case they didn't get it the first time. Because in your head, you're like, that made sense, right? And in their head, you don't know. So over communication is key. You want to keep being in that environment. You want to keep those connections that you just made, then over communicate. And when you over communicate, it just makes everything clear. You know what I mean? Like, not only are your intentions clear, but you communicating to that other person is clear, which, you know, makes the world go round. So over communicate, people. Okay. Section 2, unblock. This is about unblocking yourself when you get stuck, because everybody gets stuck. You get the motivation, right? The energy. We get it from playing, making everything a game, letting ourselves be okay, right? Not being so serious. We make those connections and we become a team player. But what happens when you basically are your own worst enemy? And so in this section, Ollie talks a little bit about that. So chapter 4 is about seeking clarity. When you're confused, when you don't really know what the problem is, he talks about methods on questioning what is the actual problem. Because when we procrastinate, it's usually out of fear, right? And he goes on to say, like, you have to ask yourself, what is the actual problem? What is making me want to avoid what I actually want to do, what I want to accomplish? So the first emotional barrier, he says, is to gain clarity about what you're actually doing. That involves the why, and then trying to figure out your how. Like, ask when, ask what, ask yourself, basically. One solution, he says so in the summary, is to use implementation intentions, where your common daily habits become triggers for the things you intend to work on. For example, if I brush my teeth, I'll stretch my hamstring. One of my favorite quotes from this book. You go, Ollie. But yeah, it's basically trying to figure out what makes you stuck. And why does that stop you? And what is it exactly that you're trying to avoid? By asking these questions, we find clarity. All right? So, chapter 5, it's about finding courage. All right? And let me tell you, I read this section over and over again. Our second emotional blocker, according to Ollie, is basically trying to get rid of fear, which in itself is scary, right? Because we're facing our fear. And the reality of it, it's a really hard thing to do, even as an adult, right? But that is why Ollie starts talking about it. He says the courage comes from 3 sources. The first is to understand your fear. Ask yourself, why have I not started on this project yet? What am I afraid of? And what does the fear come from? The second is to reduce the fear. Once you figure out what it is, right? Our fears often get blown out of proportion. He says, ask yourself these questions to prevent yourself from making it catastrophic. Will this matter in 10 minutes? Will this matter in 10 hours? Will this matter in 10 weeks? Will this matter in 10 years? It kind of makes you more present, basically, is what he's trying to say. Or at least in my opinion, that's what he's trying to say. Makes you more present And it makes it seem like a smaller problem than it actually is, because that's something that we humans tend to do with our fears. We tend to make them bigger than they actually are. For example, with me, I have anxiety. I have anxiety over a lot of different things. For example, I actually had anxiety over taking a pill recently. And last year, I was finally able to get over that fear of taking a pill. I questioned myself, why am I so afraid of taking a pill? What's the worst that can happen? And I kept telling myself, well, what if I choke? And I'm like, well, if you do choke, you can either spit it out or you can try to swallow it and you have more water handy, right? And then came the other thing, like, well, I also need to be able to take medicine, right? Not everything comes in liquid form. There's a lot of medicines now that are just come in pill form. And I'm like, will this matter? And I eventually said, yeah, this will matter in time. And it's kind of a bad example, to be honest with you, because in 10 years, I feel like I will still need to swallow a pill. But at the same time, it kind of put it in retrospect. I'm like, I shouldn't be so afraid of swallowing a pill. I should just try and try and try. And by asking myself questions and by kind of making myself present, I was finally able to get over that fear, which, by the way, I'm happy to say at the age of 28, I'm finally able to take pills. It's so small, but it's so big for me, you guys. You don't even know. It's such a headache. But anyways, back to the book. Let's do it. The third is to overcome your fear. Remind yourself that most people are not, in fact, thinking about you. So he talks about being self-conscious. For example, I was super self-conscious about making this YouTube video, but then I realized I don't even have like 200 followers. So what am I afraid of? It'd be cool if you'd subscribe right now, to get me to 200 followers, but that's up to you. Right now, I'm fearless, and I'm just really happy to be able to do this. Anyways, chapter 6. Get started, okay? All right? I love this chapter. I've been saying that about all the chapters, I know. But this chapter I can fully relate to because I feel like that's where I'm at, okay? Now, hold on. Hold. Ugh, I made so many tabs. Okay, here we go. Made so many notes and I've highlighted so many things. Okay, our third emotional blocker is inertia. So I don't know if you remember science class and what inertia is, but it's the momentum to keep things going. The best antidote is to do simply something. Did you get that? The best antidote is basically to do something instead of nothing. That's it. And you're like, that can't be it. No, that's it. That's what he says. The best antidote to doing nothing is simply to do something. By taking action is by taking the first step. Example, this YouTube channel. Do you know how many times I filmed this? You have no idea, because I'm making it look seamless. But oh my goodness, I tried to film it yesterday with a face full of makeup. No. I guess I like sitting on the floor and talking to a camera late at night on a Sunday night, but here we are. And the final step is to create systems that support yourself long term. Above all, cut yourself some slack and celebrate the small wins. Ollie is basically saying, be kind to yourself. Because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be so harsh to anybody else in the world the way you are to yourself in your mind. And this one really hit home because, oh my goodness, goodness, am I hard on myself. I am so hard on myself that it sometimes like paralyzes me. He actually does talk about that, paralysis. But oh my God, is he right? Be kind to yourself. That is literally the first step. Be kind, be patient, and just celebrate the fact that you are able to take that first step, because the first step is the hardest. Very cliche, I know, but it's because it takes the most amount of energy. He even drew a little graph about it. Look at that. You see? It's like this man, this bicycle, right? He wants to go up the hill and then just kind of cruise. But in order to do that, he has to actually go up the hill, which is the hardest part for him to be able to cruise. It's a good example, better than the examples that I've been given. Once you get over that hump, once you overcome, you'll be cycling down, the wind in your hair, feeling better than ever, and gliding on home. And this is me taking that first big step. Subscribe. Okay, at this point you're probably wondering how many books I have. I have a lot of books. I'm a bookworm. So yeah, going through this book was a breeze, all right? It just was amazing. Not that I had help from an audible book at all. I did. I cheated. I also bought the Audible. Anyways, section 3, sustain. He talks about conserving, which is what chapter 7 is about. Chapter 7 is conserve. How to conserve and keep that energy and keep that momentum going, right? So section 1 was about getting that energy. Section 2 was how to basically hone in that energy, how to find that energy. And now section 3 is how to keep that energy going, because this is all about you, right? How do you keep yourself going? You keep yourself going by feeling good. So chapter 7, stay with me, come on, we are almost done. Chapter 7 is basically how to not burn out, right? The solution from burnout arises from overexertion. The solution is to do less, which is weird because you're like, I'm trying to be more productive. I'm not trying to do less, I'm trying to do more. But see, the thing is, right, when you're too productive, you kind of, most of the time, will burn out, right? You're going too fast, too furious, and you're just, The 3 ways to do less in practice. The first is to stop yourself from overcommitting. Don't overpromise what you can't deliver. Don't do that, because it make you feel bad when you can't deliver, and it'll make the other person feel like you're not reliable, and it's just bad energy all around, and you really don't want that in your life. Ask yourself, if I had to only pick one project to put all my energy to, because it's all about energy, right? What would that be? So make sure that the project that you pick is your priority, right? Because when it becomes your priority, you are able to give it your all, your 100%, your focus, your dedication, honing your skills, exactly what he was talking about in the previous chapter. And the second way is to resist distraction. Okay, so you know what energizes you, you know how to keep going, because yes, at the end of the day, we're human, we're gonna get distracted, but also finding a method to accept, yes, I got distracted, but now we're pivoting back to what I was exactly doing. And the third way, according to Ali, is to find moments in your working day to do nothing. that is hard. That is a hard pill to swallow. I don't know, for me, I tend to feel like I'm wasting time if I'm not productive. For example, during the weekend, as a full-time working person, the weekend is where you get things done, right? It's where you're the most productive. You got house chores, you know, you have to make sure everything is clean, everything is running as it should be. You gotta get the groceries, you gotta get the stuff done, the personal stuff, because guess what? Monday morning, 9 a.m., you gotta be at work again. But sometimes the best thing is to do nothing. Why? Because rest is necessary. You can't give it your all when you're so overworked and overstressed and overstimulated and just drained. Like I said, it's all about energy. All about energy. Chapter 8, recharge. So how are we recharging our batteries? How are we keeping this energy going into a cycle? So literally what I was just saying about the previous chapter, it's about rest time. It's always about rest time and how to find your calm, right? So he breaks it down. Calm is actually, it stands for something. So it's competent, autonomous, liberated, and mellow. He dives a little bit into detail within this section on how to basically find what makes you calm. That could literally just be you crocheting a sweater for someone. It could literally be you baking cookies for whatever reason. Something that recharges you, something that also fills you up personally on a almost spiritual level, really. For me, it's reading books. I love reading books. I love basically leaving this world and going into the world of whatever it is I'm reading. And the second solution, he says, to spend more time in and with nature. And I know a lot of people, they aren't really outdoorsy people, but connecting with nature is something else. Being outside does change you. Just in every way, shape, or form. You're breathing in fresh air. You're taking in the elements of outside. Things that are basically out of your control, but in a lot of ways are like soothing and calming. Again, he backs this up with research. A lot of scientists have proven that greenery, or just even looking at a photo of grass, can change your mood and can change your energy and can change the way that your brain is processing things. And it gives you a break. It's almost like giving your body a big sigh of relief and just being like, I'm here and I'm okay. Everything's okay. And not all rest needs to be strategic. Basically, the most energizing thing you can do is to do nothing at all. By doing less today, you'll feel better tomorrow. Basically, what he's saying is don't overthink it, dude. Just chill. Take a breather. Lay on the floor. Look at the ceiling if you have to. It helps. It helps a lot. So chapter 9 is all about alignment. Misalignment burnout is basically when you're committing to something that isn't really connecting with your true self, right? For example, I could not be a mathematician. Why? Because I do not like math. I would not be okay working a day as an engineer at all. Why? Because I would not be happy. To my core, I would not be happy at all. I'd rather you give me a good book to read than math any day. So basically, misalignment burnout arises when we spend time on goals that don't match up with our sense of self, right? So I could go out and be getting my engineering degree, but at the end of the day, I won't be happy. I could get the degree, but it doesn't make me happy because I do not like math. Overcoming misalignment is a lifelong task. Basically, trying to figure out what makes you the happiest is your lifelong task. What makes you happy? That is a lot. And it's also fun because you try to get to know yourself. You know, throughout the years, you go through periods of transformation. At least I know I have. And the older I get, the more I realize that I can't be a person that I picture in my mind, because at the end of the day, I like the things I like and I don't like the things I don't like. Because we all probably have this ideal form of self, when in reality, who we are ourselves is perfect enough. So the last 3 little tidbits he talks about is long-term, short-term, medium-term. What does that look like for you? Asking yourself these questions will really help hone in who you are and where you want to be. And this book makes you question a lot of things. So, in conclusion, what are my thoughts about this book? Overall, it's a great book. It's great. It questions a lot about who you are as a person. It makes you question a lot of things that you thought were set in stone. It made me question a lot of things personally about fears and, you know, the alignment of oneself. Am I truly happy? Am I going to stay happy? What makes me happy? What makes me feel good? Because at the end of the day, Ali says, you need to basically become a scientist, a feel-good scientist. Find out what makes you feel good. Find out what makes you tick. Find who energizes you. Find your environment, your tribe. Find what makes you happy and relax at the same time. The key to keep going is by knowing yourself and then implementing that and then taking the first step, having the courage to take the first step. So if you're watching this video, this is my first step. And I hope you liked it. Thanks, and until next time.